Hey everyone, welcome back to another 100 Days of No Code workshop. In today's workshop, we have Prajot, who is going to be walking us through Airtable scripting as the second part of the three-part series that he's giving us on JavaScript, and walking us through how we can learn just enough code to be dangerous. So if you want to level up your Airtable projects and just your general Airtable use cases, this is going to be very, very useful. We're going to have questions at the end and throughout, so feel free to ask away if you have any. But other than that, I shall pass over to you, Prajot.
Hey, Max. Thank you. Awesome. So yeah, I think today we are going to go into actually application of whatever we did in the last workshop. And Airtable is one of the best developer-oriented no-code tools. Like their documentation is awesome. Their coding environment is amazing. They have a lot of examples. So yeah, I think it's just a lot of fun to code on Airtable as compared to other things that I've worked with. So yeah, hopefully it'll be useful. So let's get started. So I'll just do a brief summary of the last workshop in the first 5 minutes. So we go over the high level of the concepts we covered, and then we dive straight into Airtable. So programming is basically just a list of instructions that you are telling to a machine, and this is how, like, we tell, take this data, do this thing, and the machine does that. And the mental model that we covered last time is like the most important thing regardless of where you code. So you always have some input that your code will take. You'll have a compute which will contain your CPU, which will actually run those instructions and the logic that you've written. And then it will use memory to store data, retrieve data, and make changes in that. And then finally you send an output. So in Airtable, input is something that you pass to your script through your automation. Memory is actually the Airtable database, the base tables where all the data is stored. CPU or the compute is what the program that you're going to write, and the output is something that you pass to the next thing in the automation. Now, in terms of like building blocks of code that we covered last week, so there are 5. So the first one is variables and data structures, which is where you actually store the data in your code, and you manipulate that over using all the other things. Operators and expressions could be arithmetic. It could be assignment operator where you're setting a value of a calculation to a variable. Conditionals allow us to do if else to actually write the logic in our code. So that's where a lot of rules or the magic of computation comes in. Loops are to iterate over lists of data, uh, and then you do operation on each of them. So that's where loops are super useful. And functions allow you to combine a certain set of instructions into one single method or one single container, and then you just call that every time you need that same set of instructions to be run. So it helps with uh, abstracting your code and making code smaller. So if you want to do the same thing, you don't want to copy paste the code. So those are like the 5 building blocks. And just to refresh the memory in actual coding, so these are like our data types. So you have number equal to 3. So this is a type of number. This is a string. This is a Boolean. This is null, where you have no value. You set it like this. When you don't set any value, it's undefined. This is an array, or like the most basic form of a list, which is used to store a collection of items. An object is basically a dictionary, which lets you set a key as the value that you'll use to get this data and the value. An array of objects is the most important data structure from a practical point of view. So it stores an array of dictionaries. So in this case, I have animals as my object, and each animal has these 3 data structures. So name, sound, and is pet. Uh, and then you have conditionals. So this is a condition: if number greater than 0, then it's positive, else it's negative, else it's 0. And then this is a for loop or loop. So you loop over the length of this array, and then print out each of those values. this is basically how we are accessing an object value. So object dot operator is what is used to get the value of this key. So object dot first name, object dot last name. And finally, we loop over the array of objects because first it's an array and then it's an object. So we store an animal here, and then you can do animal dot is pet. So for the first animal, it will be false, and for the second, it will be true. And then we just print the animal dot name, who is a pet, as animal dot sound. So if I quickly run this, you'll see the output here. So yeah, so it prints positive as the output of this rule because number is 3. It loops through the array and prints all the values of the array. It takes the first name and the last name, concatenates them, and prints name of the host is Max Heaney. And then it loops through the animal array. And for the dog, it says it's a stray, and the pet cat also is a stray. Yeah. So that's pretty much the basics of coding, regardless of what language you're working on, what tool you're working on. This is how coding works. You define some data, you do either some conditions or you loop over it. So that's pretty much the basics of it. So the next step after that is now we come to Airtable, right? So now in Airtable, they have divided their data structures into 5 things. And if you've just worked with Airtable, you're aware of these. So the first thing in an Airtable when you go to the interface is you create a base, right? So that's the top level thing of your data structure is a base. Now a base has multiple tables, and each of those tables has separate views. So you have grid view, you have form view. So you have all these views, and then you can have rules within those views on what you want to hide or show. And then you have fields, which are basically each column in a table. And then you can set the type of that column to a single text, a date, a check mark, and so on. So those are the actual data types. And records is actual data that you're storing in them. So for anyone who's not used Airtable, I'll just show. So if you go to the homepage of Airtable, this is where you add a base, right? So I added a base called weather tracker. And in this, I have this table called cities. I have this view called grid view. And this is my columns. And in the column, if I go here, I can set the name of my column and the data type. So this is actually a field. So temperature is the column name, but the field is single line text, attachment, and so on, right? And then this whole thing is actually a whole record. And Kanpur is the value of field city in that record, right? So this is what the data structure of Airtable that we are dealing with, right? So the Airtable has given us an interface to play with it, but they've also given us the code level objects to play with that data. So you can do whatever you're doing manually via code, right? So that's what you're going to do. And I can jump directly into it. But the first, I just wanted to cover one key concept, which I was not able to last time, which is that fundamentally all programming is basically a programming language, right? It's not just programming, we code in a programming language. So JavaScript, C++, Python, they're all languages, and every language has to deal with nouns and verbs, right? So they are the fundamental components of any language. And so when we define our data in our things, we are defining nouns. So if you look at Twitter, so what are the nouns when it comes to Twitter? So you have a tweet, you have a like button, you have a retweet button. So there are like these buttons, which are nouns. You have the tweet itself, which is a noun. There are users, which are nouns. And then you have verbs, which are actions that people do on those nouns, right? So you can like a tweet, you can retweet a tweet, you can follow a user. So follow, like, retweet are verbs, right? So they are actions. And then this is how pretty much everything is defined. So you have like those basic number, integer, string arrays. But then people create these abstract nouns which match what we talk about in real world, and then link those to that data somehow, because the program would only be able to deal with that data structure. So that's super important to think about whenever you create your databases in any no-code tool. And then finally, if you boil it down, at the end, we have 4 types of verbs in a broad category, which are most used, and they are CRUD. right? It's called CRUD. So you can create something, you can read something, you can update something, or you can delete something, right? So you can create a tweet, which is called post a tweet. You can read other people's tweet who you follow. So it comes in your wall if you're reading them. You cannot edit a tweet, which is one of the features that Twitter does. It doesn't allow you to do that word, right? And it also has a rule in creation that your tweet can only be 140 characters. So this is how you create ingenuity in your nouns and verbs. You add some sort of rules or conditions, and then finally you can delete your tweet. So yeah, so now that we are done with the basics of nouns, verbs, Airtable data structure, let's get into code. So any questions up till now?
Feel free, Roy, if you have any questions, just to pop them in the chat, and we can get to them there if need be.
Awesome. Cool. So let's get started with creating our first automation. When you come to Airtable, there's this small thing on the top right called automations. So one thing to note is that you need a pro account to be able to write scripts. So that's a constraint that is there with Airtable. So we came here and we created a custom automation, and we can name it. We'll name it get weather data. So we are creating we are also going to create a weather table whenever we run this automation. So first thing in automations in Airtable is a trigger, right? So if you go, so trigger basically says it's an event. Whenever this happens, then you do the rest of the actions, right? So if you look at trigger, you have a lot of triggers here. The first is when record matches a condition. So when, like, if my record is equal to some value, then run this. Or when a form is submitted. So when somebody submits an Airtable form, a new row is created. So that is when a new record is created. When you update a record. So they're like all of these triggers. Schedule time is another one. So you can run this automation every 10 minutes, every 1 week, and so on. So, and the last one, which is a alpha feature, but it's one of the most powerful features, is like whenever a webhook is received. So I can run this automation from another app through an API call. So if I do an API call, it calls this webhook and then it runs these actions. So here I can add a lot of actions. I can run a script and I can send an email. So, and you can keep adding them in a pipeline and they'll run one after the other. But fundamentally, whenever this trigger is run, then these things happen. So for this demo, I'll use run a webhook and I'll show you different triggers at the end when we are done with the script. Okay, so we created this when a webhook is received. On the right, you can see you have this webhook that you need to call. So you can copy this and we'll go into Postman. So nothing to worry at this point. We are just doing an API call to this webhook. And if you want a deep dive into API calls, Mark did a great workshop a few weeks ago, which is amazing. So yeah, something to look out for. So here we come and we do a post call. So it's a post call, and in the body you have to send this JSON. So don't worry about this too much. I'll just do this. So once I send, I get success true. I can run this test. And yeah, it says test ran successfully and I didn't pass it anything. So body is empty. Cool. So now my webhook is working. Now I'll add some actions. So this is where scripting comes in. So the action we are going to do today is run script. Awesome. So when you're running your script, you have this nice little interface. So on the left, you have inputs. On the right, you have outputs. And this is where all your code comes in. And you have your documentation, examples, and API here, right? So this API is different from the network API. This is the API of the code. But yeah, this is where you'll find a lot of examples and everything will mean something. So cool. So when you come into this place, the first thing you should do, they already have some code here, right? So this is very similar to what we did in console.log. So this should make sense. So this is going to print something and it's going to print hello and then base name. So this is a tricky syntax. We were doing something different. So we'll follow that. So hello and then base dot name. Right. So this will print the name of my base if I run this test. So it should print weather tracker. Right. So it says hello weather tracker. So I'm able to print the name of my base. So when you do base here, right? So we went through this slide where the first thing you have to cover is base. So what all things can you do with a base inside Airtable? So you can just come in here and type base, and then you do a dot, right? So you see this IntelliSense is what this is called. So you get like auto suggestions on what functionality you have available, right? So here you can see some purple cube and a blue cuboid. So a blue cuboid is basically data. So name is an actual value of something. So you'll get that value. So those are variables or data that you can get. The purple cubes are actual functions, right? So when you create a function, you can call a function. So Airtable has given you some functions that you can call here with some parameters. So we did base.name. We can also do base.id. And we can just come here and log. So it'll return the ID of this base. Right. So you get the ID of the base. Now let's say you want the tables of the base. So you can do base.tables. So this will return all the tables in your base. At this point, we have only one. So you can see, like if you just look at this thing, so it's an array of an object, right? So super important. So this is the most used data structure. And then you have this object on the first index of the array. So this table name is cities. It doesn't have any description. It has this URL. So when I go to this URL, it will open up that table for editing. Yeah, it'll open back this table. And then you have fields. So there are 6 fields according to this. So fields is an array. And then you have IDs, name of that field is city, type is single line text. And the other field is temperature. It's also single line text. So we can confirm. So if I come back to my table, I have temperature and it's of single line text, right? So I'm able to get all my fields in my code. So that's cool. Right. So yeah, and then views. So I have one view called grid view, right? So I'm able to get the description of all my tables. If I have more than one, I'll get more data here. Cool. Now let's say I want to extract a table. So I can create a variable called table, and I can say base dot get table. So there's a function for this. And then so this function, when you call, you see this hover value, right? So you get a documentation here, get a table from the base according to its name, and then you pass the name of the table. And Airtable is smart enough to know that the name of the table is city. So it just shows up here. You can just click on it, and that's it. So now you get this table. So again, if you now do console.log table, you'll see the value of that table show up. So I'll remove all of this for now. So now I get like this object. You can see the curly braces. It has keys and values. So again, I get that same 6 fields, and then you have description, URL, and so on. Awesome. So I'm able to get my table. Now if I do table dot, it will show me other options, right? So now it's auto figured out, okay, so this is a table variable, which is of type table of Airtable. And then you have these many things you can do. So the blue cube, the purple cubes are again functions, and the blue ones are data. So I can get table.name, table.description, fields, URL, views, and I can also run some things on it now. So the first thing that we can do is let's just select all the records in our table, right? So I can just select all my records and we'll save it in var result, right? So this is where a new concept will come in, and that is of async and sync, right? So what is async and sync? And you'll hear these more. So let's think about that for a minute. So so to think about like asynchronous stuff, it is like a chat. So right, so when you ping somebody on chat, they don't instantly respond to you, right? But if you look at a phone call, when I call someone, uh, we are talking in a synchronous manner, because when you cannot say, hey Max, how are you doing? Max has to respond back in the call, right? There's that necessity. But on a chat, you can say, hey Max, and then Max can look at that message 10 hours later, 20 hours later, and then whenever he has read it, he can respond back, right? So that's one example of sync and async. Another good example is, let's say, so let's say you have a brother, you are in each of your rooms, your mom will come to your room and say, clean your room, right? And then she'll wait till you're done. Right. So till you're done, she'll just wait there, do nothing. That might take 20 minutes. Once you're done, you tell her, okay, I'm done. Then she'll go to the other room to your brother and say, hey, can you clean your room? Then again, she'll wait there 20 minutes for your brother to clean his room. And then she'll go to the kitchen and do her work. Right. So that's an async process where your mom is basically doing a sync process. She's waiting for things to complete. In an async one, what will happen is she'll go to the first to your room. She'll say, yeah, clean your room, and when you're done, come and tell me, right? Promise me that you'll clean your room, right? And then she goes to instantly to the next brother's room and say, clean your room, and when you're done, promise me that you'll come and tell me back. And then she goes to her kitchen and is doing her job, right? So she the whole process of telling them took like 30 seconds, and then the rest of the 20 minutes, both of them are parallelly doing their job, and she's doing her job in her office or wherever, right? So with this analogy, what it seems much more efficient, right? Like you're not waiting there to give out instructions and so on. So that is called async. So in async, the the thing that is running the task will give you a promise, right? I promise you that I'll do this task in the future, and when I'm done, I'll inform you. So you can look here. It says select records async, and the return is a promise, right? So a lot of coding takes principles from real world. So it returns a promise. So the way you call these is with an await. So whenever you're running an async process, you have to add an await in front of it. So this will basically not go to the next line unless this thing has completed. So if I run this and then I'll just show a example of what I'm doing. Cool. So when I run this code, it'll run this code, wait for this to complete, and then come and print hello, and then print all the rows in that table. So let's run this. Right. So this is where it runs table. So it prints the table, it prints hello, and then it prints the records, right? So everything is going well. Even though this took some time to run and came back, it's waiting for it to complete before it ran this line. So you can see all the records here. We get 3 records which I have in my table. But what happens if I remove await, right? So if I run this now without await, it'll go here. The result will be a promise. So result is actually a promise. It has not been filled because we didn't wait for it to complete. So it'll come and the result will be empty here. So so that's pretty much async. I'm not sure if this makes sense. So I would like some feedback. Like, does it make sense?
Roy asked, why does it have a strike through?
Oh, right. Yeah. I'll come. Okay.
So it definitely makes sense though.
Okay, so basically what this select records is doing, it's getting all the data of your array table of all the fields, right? So they have deprecated this. So whenever you deprecate something, it's showing a thing, and deprecation basically means in future they will remove this function and or have some sort of important information on it. So they now require you to give the fields that you need out of the table, and when you give the fields, it will remove that. So in my table, so I can have hundreds of columns in my table, right? And let's say I have thousands of data. So that's 1,000 into 100 amount of data that Airtable has now, which can be huge if you get everything every time. So they say, okay, ask only for the columns that you need to work on, right? So if I only want to work on city, I should only ask for city. So here, if I come and say city, then it'll only give me the data for the city and not the other columns. Does that make sense?
So yeah, assume that makes sense for, yeah, perfect.
Okay. Right. So yeah, this is how I can filter that. So for now, I'll just remove this and show the output, and then I'll show the output with the field. Cool. So the basic basic rule to simplify all of that promise thing is that whenever you see this async in the Airtable functions, you should add an await before it. That's the rule. Yeah, cool. So if I play this, it'll show me the records and I can see 3 records. Now this name, you'll see like, okay, so where are the fields, right? So I'm not seeing any field. So this is the name of the primary key. So it's returning the primary key or the first key of your table. So now I still have to get data from it. So to get data, you have to write this code. So you can say result of result.records. So this is a dictionary. So to get it, you have to use dot operator and then records. And then within that, what I can say, okay, get the 0th record. And then when you do dot, you get these options, right? So name is the primary cell value as a string. ID is the ID of this record, but you can do get cell value, right? So when you do this, now you get to see all your columns here. So city, humidity, temperature, status. So I only have city filled, so I'll get that. And when I log this, it should print out Kanpur, which is my first city. Oh, sorry, Atlanta is my first city. Yes. Yeah, Atlanta is my first city. Cool. So now if I do this, which is give fields, and I say, okay, only city and temperature. So now if I come here and I try to access humidity, right? So this will throw an error because I have removed that from my fields, but I'm trying to access it, and you can see test failed, and it says field humidity isn't in this record, right? So this is where basically it's giving me less data. But if I give it temperature, it will not throw an error. It will give an empty value because temperature is empty right now. So I get none. Cool. That makes sense.
Yeah, I think so.
Awesome. Okay, cool. So good. So we are able to get the data now, right? So now the app that we want to build is basically what we want to build here is we want to look at all the cities and get all the weather information of that city from an API call, and then automatically fill out our table, right? So that's the thing that you're going to build now. So cool. So the first thing that we need to do is fetch all the cities into some data structure. So what we can do is create a cities array, which is empty initially, and then we'll write a for loop, right? So we'll say var I equal to 0, I is less than result dot records dot length, and then I plus plus. So this loop will run for as many records are returned, and then you can say cities dot push. So push is a way to add a value to an array, and then we can say result dot records of 0 of I. So the for each time this loop runs, I value increases by 1. So it'll run, and then we'll say get cell value and then city, right? And then I can come and log cities here. So the cities now will contain all the cities that we have. Let me just remove the other logs. So now I'll get all the 3 cities in this array, right? So I get this array of cities. Now for each of those cities, what I want to do is do an API call. So let's create a function now, right? Or I mean, we can do it without function, then I get a function. So what you want to do is do an API call, and Airtable allows you to use something called as fetch, right? So fetch is a HTML, it's a JavaScript function to do an API call. So fetch takes in a URL. So I have this URL ready. So if you look at this URL, it's basically an call to openweathermap.org API. And the queue is equal to takes the name of a city. So this is query parameter of the API, and it takes an API key. So this is my API key. And when you run this, you get this data from weather API, right? So we'll just do this now. So if I do this fetch, now again, something to know is that this weather response I'll store it here. This fetch is also an async call, right? So we don't know how much time it will take. So the fetch returns a promise. So if you go hover over fetch, this is also returning a promise. So if it's returning a promise, you have to do a wait, right? So once it fetches, we can say whether data is equal to await fetch whether response dot JSON. Right. So the output of this API is a JSON object. So this is a JSON object. And you can see that the weather API, this weather response is a promise. So I have to again do like a wait on it. And now I get my weather data. So now I can log this weather data. Here. Let me just play. Right. So you can see the data that you're seeing here now came here as a object. So we have the coordinates, we have the weather and clouds, broken clouds, right? So yeah, so now I'm able to get my weather from an API call within Airtable. So now this is always getting for Kanpur. So this is hard coded. So what I want to do is basically for each of my cities, I'll replace this value with a dynamic value and then run this API call 3 times, right? So what we can do first is create a for loop. So so this time I want to loop for the length of the cities and then like this plus. Right. Cool. So now to replace this is a string. I can do concatenation like we did before and say cities of I, right? So now for each city, this URL will be different. Q will be first Atlanta, then it will be Kanpur, then it will be London, right? So it'll get that. It'll store this weather data here. But now it'll print all this data, but it's not storing it anywhere. So I can test it out. So if I play it, now I'll get 3 weather data. It'll take more time. Cool. So this first one is for Atlanta. This one is for Kanpur, and this one is for London, right? So I'm able to see all that data, but I cannot access it anywhere here because I didn't store it, right? And it was overwritten with every loop. So the pattern here is you create something called as weathers and you keep it an array. And inside this, what you can do is you can say weathers dot push weather data. Right? So that's one way to do it. The other way to do it, which is much nicer, is what you can say weather data equal to an object or a dictionary. And then what I can do, so this same pattern we use with cities. So we created the cities array and push to city. Now what I want to do is show a different method of doing it. So what you can say is weather data, and then you can create a key in that dictionary. So the key in that dictionary will be the name of the city, right? So I'll say cities of I is equal to weather data. So now if I print this, I should call this weather data with the object. So yeah. Awesome. So now I get like this nice looking object. So I know Atlanta data is here, Kanpur data is here, and London data is here. So cities of I evaluates to a string. So I create this dictionary on the fly, right? So Atlanta is this. So awesome. So let's say if I want the weather of Atlanta, what I can do is I can say weather object dot Atlanta dot weather dot weather dot weather of 0. So weather is an array. So 0, and then I can do description. Right. So this should return, if I evaluate this should return few clouds. Right. Awesome. So now I have like this data structure that I can play with and get all the data I need. So next step now is to actually write all of this data back into my Airtable. Right. So let me just open this in a new tab so I know my fields. So the first field is temperature, then humidity, then weather status, then icon, and is fetched. Okay, cool. So what I can do now, so first we look at how to update data in Airtable. So if you go to the documentation below and table, you can see everything here. Everything is documented here, so you can just refer to it whenever you want to. So we have something called as update records async. So we want to update multiple records, right? So what it basically takes is it takes an array of objects. So we need to create this data structure, right? So we'll create a data structure with update object, right? So this is what we'll give to Airtable. And finally, when we are done with that object, we'll call table.update records async, and then we'll pass it the update object, right? So when we run this, it will update all the data in our Airtable, right? So let's look at how the update object looks like. So update object is made up of one object. So where one update object is equal to a dictionary, right? So if you look at this, it has an ID, which is the ID of my record, and it has the value of fields and then the value of each of those fields. So for our case, it will be ID, and this will be the ID of the record that we are trying to do. So at the top, we got this result.records, right? So this result has the IDs. So if I do result dot record IDs, right? And I. So the 0th of it will contain the ID of the record where Atlanta is. So this is how we'll do it. So there'll be 0. And then what I can say fields. So my fields here are all the fields that I want to store. So you have city, which I already have. So I can set it back to that. But if I don't want to set it back, you can just leave it empty. It will only update the fields that we enter here. So I can say temperature, and then this is where we'll get the temperature out of our weather object. So we'll say weather object dot so I forgot the structure of it. So it's dot main. Okay. So it's main dot temp. Cool. Right. So let's say this is why one update object, and we'll try to just use this for now and see what happens. So, oh yeah, because I'm using update records async. So I need to wrap it in an array because this expects an array as input. So let's play this. So what we expect to happen is that the Atlanta temperature will be set. Something great. Okay. Oh, yeah. Okay, let me see what's going wrong. Okay. Okay, maybe this is not evaluating properly. Let's try to log it. Oh, it's text. Oh, got it. Okay, cool. Okay, so what's happening is that my output of temperature is actually a number, but it's expecting a text. So so this is a number, but it's expecting a string. So that's where the bug is. So now it didn't give an error. And if I go back to my table, you should see 20 here. Cool. So let's reset. So basically my temperature returned from the API is this number. So there's something that we'll also do here now, which is convert a number to a string. So what you can do is dot to string is one thing, or what you can do is you can append it to an empty string and then it converts it into a string. So if you have this number, it will convert into this string. Awesome. So this will work. So we can quickly create the rest of the things that we need. So we have humidity. Uh, uh, so humidity is inside this same thing again. So, and then I'll convert it into a string using this small hack of appending a string to it. So the other thing we have is weather status. So this weather status is again inside weather dot weather of 0. Right. And my description actually here is a string, so we don't have to worry about that. The next thing we have is weather icon. So weather icon is of type attachment, right? And the attachment data type, what you can do whenever you have to worry about data types, you can come to this cell field values and field options. And inside this, you can go and search for your type. So we'll search for attachment. Uh, Right. So in attachment, you'll get to see like how it's expecting an attachment. So it's expecting an object with a URL, right? And you can give an optional file name. So we'll just give the URL now. The question mark is for optional. So here, what you want to do is copy this name, weather icon, and then you say whether. So my icon, the way this API does it, it gives you the name of this icon 04n, and then the URL is actually openweathermap/image/w name of this .png. So we'll create this URL here. So weather of 0 dot icon. So that's what it's called. Okay, awesome. And now I'll set this equal to this string. So so we need the 04n value inside here. So I'll remove this, and this is where we'll dynamically populate it. Awesome. So this will now evaluate to 04n.png. And the final thing is fetched, right? And I'll come to that why we want to do that later. So we'll not do that now. Cool. So now if I run this, maybe I have to give everything. Hmm. Yeah, okay. This should be fine. Am I making some mistake? So, so one way to debug sometimes when you play with JSONs, you can go to this thing called as JSON editor online, and you go here and you can paste. And sometimes if there's error in this, you get to see now this will be an error. Let's see. So let's just see what error it throws. Okay. We have time on it. Oh, right. Okay, awesome. So yeah, so like I said, it's expecting a URL as the input. I said, and then I forgot to do it. Awesome. Cool. So an attachment basically works. It expects an object which takes in a URL here. Uh, the type of fields are incompatible. It is here. Oh, okay. Right. Okay. So the bug here is that it's a multi-attachment thing. So you can add more than one attachment. So it expects an array. So it's an array of object. So yeah, right. So you have to give it a URL, and then everything else remains the same. Cool. Yeah. Sorry for that. Cool. So now if I run this, it'll set up all of these fields in my table, and I can go and check. Right. So I got my temperature, humidity, flu counts, and my icon here. Now what you want to do is basically run this for each of my cities. So we can now take this code and run a for loop over it. So this is generally how you go and explore data is you create it for one and then you run a for loop. So I say I equal to 0, I less than cities dot length. Right. And now my update object is what I'm looking at. So what I want to store in it is this object. So I can say update object dot push, and then I want to push this for each of my city into that. And here I want to do I. So for each of my 0, I want to replace it with I. This won't change because this is inside weather. But here, instead of Atlanta, what I need is basically the name of the city. So the result dot records of I dot get cell value city. So this is basically what we did here, and like we were able to get the value of city like this. So you can do it here, or to be nicer, you can come and create a variable as city over here, and then you can use the city inside this. So now we are looking at the weather object which we created as a dictionary, which contains all our weather data. So we go and plug the city in here, and we can just copy this everywhere where we have Atlanta. Right. So now basically it gets the temperature of that city, humidity, description icon, and it creates this whole object. So we can look at the object here. And here we can change this from one update object to update object. Awesome. So now if we play this, it will go and populate all the cities. Right. So this is how our object looks like. So these are the things we're updating. And now I can come in here and see all my data has come with the images. So now let's try adding some new city. So right. So now we'll not. So we know how the code works. We're able to do it. Now let's run this as an automation. So what we can do is do run it as an API or a webhook, or we can do it at a scheduled time. So in this scheduled time, we can run it every minute, right? So the minimum is 15 minutes. So that doesn't help us. Yeah, I mean, it'll be slower to do it that way. So we'll just do webhook. Cool. So the webhook, I copy this, and then I can go into my Postman like we did before. and I'll just send. Right. So before I do, I'll just create on this automation. And now whenever I go to this webhook, it'll run the script. We'll able to see the run history here, and you'll see the data populate automatically here. So let's do this. It'll take some time. Awesome. So now with just like that one API click, I'm able to populate all the data here for all the cities, and we can make it better. Like, let's just try it again. Awesome. Right. So now that's an automation. And you can see the run which was done here. So we didn't send any data here, but you can see the log of what happened in your automation. So these are the 6 cities that it's running for, and it's getting all the data, right? So yeah, that kind of covers like how can you update record in Airtable, how can you get all the records, and we also did some real-time bug fixing and figuring out that data. I don't know if that was helpful, but I mean it was necessary. So yeah, finally I uh, I made like this another thing which is similar to that, which basically gets data of a person by their username from Twitter API. So the way this works is I have a API here, right? So I have this webhook. In this, I send my Airtable token as input, and I can just click send. And now you'll see all their Twitter data getting populated.
That's very cool. Yeah, no, this has been awesome. Yeah, thanks so much, Prajot. I don't know. I know we've got a couple of minutes left. So I'm not sure, Roy, if you had any questions or feedback for Prajot, or any just comments that you'd like to share in the chat. Feel free to. Awesome. He said, this is an awesome hour. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge. Yeah, no, this is great. Yeah, you need to be doing more of this project, sharing your worldly wisdom. Cool. Well, do you have any final words? Yes, exactly. VIP seat indeed. Do you have any final words for us, Prajot, before we wrap up?
Right. I think there's obviously a lot more to cover, but one of the best things about Airtable is their documentation is all here. You can go and read about each of those functions, what they do, and you can chain. Like one cool thing about Airtable, which is like your scripts can set some output data, and that you can access in future automation. So let me just show you a very quick example. So in my run script, if I go here and do a very simple output. So you have this output dot set, and then you can say name max, right? So I just set my output here. I can test this out. Everything will be same. Cool. But now if come to the next automation in my pipe, I can just come here, go to my data, and you can see that the output name comes inside my send email, and I can insert it here, right? So what you can do is you can run scripts, do some evaluation, get some data, and pass it on to the next action in your chain, right? And also you can get input. So in your run script, you can just do input.config. So input.config. And then here you can expect some input. So in my Twitter thing, I'm expecting my token, and you can define your inputs here. So your inputs can then come from previous thing in your pipeline of automation, and then you can set some outputs. So that basically allows you to create modular scripts that don't do all things at once. You can split your code among multiple scripts and then pass data between them. And then you can then reuse those scripts in multiple tables, automations, and so on.
Yeah, that's awesome. No, thanks for that tip at the end. Awesome. Cool. Okay. Well, yeah, it looks like perfect timing. We've just hit the hour. So again, thanks so much, Prajot, for your time and your expertise and sharing what you know. And yeah, we will be back next week for the 3rd installment. And what will that 3rd installment look like, Prajot?
Right. So I wanted to cover Bubble plugin scripting but I came across something cool in Airtable, which is called apps. But it turns out like I'll see if apps is something that like it might be too technical. So if apps don't work out, I'll do Bubble plugins. Otherwise, I'll cover Airtable apps where you can build your end-to-end app within Airtable, a separate UI, and do stuff from here.
Exciting.
Yeah, either
Very
way.
exciting. Cool. Okay, great. We'll have a good rest of your week, guys. Thanks, Roy, again for showing up, and
Thank you.
the recording will be ready tomorrow, if not the day after. So have a good one, guys, and speak soon. Thank you. Bye, bye, bye.